Today, I'll be chatting with a trans woman who's helping to see change happen through diversity, equality, inclusion, and culture.
So my customer tends to be a people person who has people who want to be educated.
You're going to learn how to deal with rejection by first accepting yourself.
I don't hide who I am. I don't hide my gender identity. I don't hide the fact I'm a trans woman. What it means is when I engage with companies, with organizations, with people, they do it knowing full well about who I am. So therefore, it's my superpower.
You'll also learn how to change a no answer to a yes.
In the early stages, when I was on that cusp of self-employment, looking to have a foot in the employed sort of camp to get some income while I was building my business, I found that I was getting more no's than I was expecting.
The theme for this season is embracing life's tapestry, and my guest is Joanne Lockwood. Joanne, your business, See Change Happen, provides DEI solutions. For the benefit of the audience, DEI means diversity, equality, and inclusion. Why is DEI such an important topic in today's world, and why you?
Why me? That's a great question. Let's start with the first part of that. Why is it important? So DEI, diversity, equity, not just equality and inclusion. And I also add on to that other words such as belongingness and culture. So why is it important? I mean, fundamentally, and I'm sure you do, and all of our listeners and watchers, want to be treated with dignity and respect. We all hope and expect to be treated fairly, given an opportunity to succeed through our own merits. So all D and I doing is just bringing a focal point to those positive people experiences, if you like, to ensure that businesses and organizations are creating that positive outcome. Because if we look at history, we've seen instances where people who are from a different ethnic background, women have not had equity, people with disability. So we recognize there are people who are marginalized by society, underrepresented and unheard. And it's important that organizations and public sector bodies put time, effort, and focus on actively making sure those people feel welcomed and included. And why me? I guess why me is the second part. Why not me? Why not all of us? It's incumbent on all of us and not to offload this to somebody else. We need to be active in this ourselves. But why me specifically? I set this business up 7 years ago with the specific aim of promoting EDI, diversity inclusion, into businesses. As a trans woman myself, I've experienced the full force of marginalization, rejection, stigma. So I kind of got this personal passion of knowing that, having that lived experience.
And in terms of your own experience, Joanne, you just mentioned there about the fact that you, as a trans woman, have experienced rejection and isolation in the workplace and maybe in your social life. I'd like to expand on some of those experiences for the audience.
I'll freely admit that my experiences haven't been as bad as some others. So I consider myself relatively privileged in the way I've been treated over the last 6, 7, 8 years. But I have had some instances, and some of them are quite common. And I can make allowances for people who maybe misgender me. I have a deep voice. I'm not saying I'm the most typically female shape in terms of my head, my arms, my neck, my body shape. So often people will use their immediate quick reactions to see people, listen to people, and make that gendered assumption. So yeah, I get misgendered. I get called sir, I get called madam, or mate occasionally. Mate is the worst, to be honest. I get called mate occasionally. Sometimes I feel that in the early stages, when I was on that cusp of self-employment, looking to have a foot in the employed sort of camp to get some income while I was building my business, I found that I was getting more no's than I was expecting. I was a very skilled IT professional. I should have got more yeses. And eventually I did get a yes. And that business said, look, we don't care that you're trans. And I thought, well, why should you? It was the fact they mentioned they didn't care really reinforced to me that maybe people do care. So getting positive affirmation, but drawing attention to me really spelled out my difference at that time. But over the years, as I say, apart from the misgendering, apart from I don't get invited to some parties anymore, but who cares? I've had some friends walk away from me. We've lost contact, but again, who cares? I've got lots of great new friends now. Uh, and I found that rather than it being, for me, a negative, I've actually found it's opened doors because I don't hide who I am. I don't hide my gender identity. I don't hide the fact I'm a trans woman. What it means is when I engage with companies, with organizations, with people, they do it knowing full well about who I am. So therefore, it's my superpower. And it stops me dealing with people who don't want to deal with me because they just don't contact me. So it really does polarize my audience. People who contact me know me, love me, want me. People who don't contact me don't. So it saves me having to do the filtering. So that's why I get a very positive experience out of life, because I'm very upfront about who I am, and therefore people keep away. And I think that's the reason I suffer very little discrimination. And yeah, also I'm married. I'm still married to my wife. We've been married for 36 years, 37 this year, 2 great children. So we've got a fantastic family. So I'm not on my own. I'm not isolated. I have a great social life. My parents are still alive and they love me. My brother loves me. So yeah, I've had it fairly easy compared with many who are maybe jobless, homeless, in a poor relationships, struggling with mental health. I'm a very positive, robust individual, if you like, with a soft centre.
Great answer. Well done. And I know from my own experience, when I moved to London in the late 80s to work, I found the word inclusion was probably to some extent the opposite, exclusion, because when you worked in a company and there's only might be 2 or 3 people in that business who, when they heard that Irish accent, they got very defensive and you could see their whole body tensing up. And their way of dealing with me was to try and push me out, to reject me as a person. And they used to make, assumptions that are, which were prejudiced, to say the least, about me as a person. And it hurt me, I was quite uh, a self-centered person myself at the time. I took it very personal. I lost confidence in myself. But, later on, I realized that those people had a problem themselves, within themselves, not with me. And they were projecting it onto me to make me feel bad about myself. So I think you have to look at the whole area of DEI with a very open mind and don't be afraid to forgive people who have wronged you in the past, I suppose you could say. It's their issue, not yours. They're trying to project their rejection onto you or their issue in life. You know, when you go to a company who wants to engage with your business, see change happen, what are the main fundamentals for that business wanting to engage with you in the first place to bring more DEI into their workforce or workplace?
Often, like many of these type of engagements, it starts with a pain or a problem or a necessity. Um, Maybe they are looking to win a tender or a bid, and in the tender and bid, it asks them to talk about their EDI credentials. Maybe they're a recruiter and they have to evidence something. Maybe they are having a kind of a reflection of their own business, thinking we need to do better, we need to try harder. So they look for consulting, training, speaking workshops, whatever it may be, to upskill them. Sometimes it's large corporates who maybe have a lack of skill or a lack of knowledge in their HR team. And one of the biggest barriers with inclusion is this fear of getting it wrong. People are very nervous or apprehensive to engage out of their comfort zone. And in fact, I speak to people all the time that are kind of nervous, going, well, and they tend to lean out of the conversation rather than trying to lean in. So what I do is I help people overcome that fear of getting it wrong. So that's one of the barriers. And these HR teams, they have to support their leaders, their managers, their teams, and their people. So often they need to be more skilled than the staff members. So again, it's upskilling them to have conversations around protected characteristics, around transgender, LGBT, or help them guide through inclusive recruitment processes.
And do you find that a lot of your business contracts are contracts come from City of London firms, or do you have a broader range of clients that might go
Uh,
beyond professional services organizations or banks?
I work with businesses of all sizes, right from the not-for-profit charities, clubs, staff networks in organisations, through to blue light, NHS trusts, councils, banks, building society, any sector. And I try not to limit myself to talk about sectors or industries. I always talk about people. So my customers, the people I deal with are people. So that's HR, talent acquisition, learning and development, organizational development, people who care about people in organizations, and they put on events for their departments, for their staff, their teams. So my customer tends to be a people person who has people who want to be educated. But I've worked all over the world. Pre-COVID, I did physical gigs in Melbourne, Australia, San Francisco, Kyiv in Ukraine, Tallinn, Estonia, all the way across Europe, Lisbon, Italy, Tel Aviv, and so it's people. They have a need, and I have passport, will travel, but predominantly my work is UK focused, broadly throughout the UK. I've even done some work with a university in Dublin and did some work there. So I've done some training on the island of Ireland as well, and up in Scotland and all over the country. So I work with housing associations, and they tend to be fairly disparately spread as well. So yeah, it's very interesting and very varied.
Have you ever had the experience of people when you go into a business to talk about DEI and to help a business to implement a DEI program, where somebody has come to you at the end of the day and they've opened their heart to you and said, I really, facing a lot of prejudice in this business, and they almost cry their eyes out in front of you because they see you as a person who will be safe to talk to?
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other night about this actually, and they wondered how I had so much depth and breadth of knowledge about different characteristics, different people, different thought. They could tell I had a real depth of experience. And I think there is this kindred spirit in people who are marginalized and minorities. You tend to gravitate to each other at the party and share your discrimination experiences, or share your experiences of being marginalized. And you kind of got that unwritten kind of in the same sort of club, that affinity with each other. So I do find that people want to offload and talk to me. I'm apparently quite approachable, quite an easy, good listener, quite easy to correspond. I'm very disciplined in my language and how I think. So yeah, people do share their stories with me, and people do feel safe around me, and I'm happy to. And when I feel safe about them, I'm happy to share and be generous with my time as well.
And how do you cope personally yourself when somebody offloads their story to you? How do you deal with that afterwards to make sure you maintain your own mental and emotional well-being and physical well-being?
Uh, I suppose the strategy I have is I'm there to listen, not fix. So most people, when they tell you the story, they don't necessarily need you to fix them or cure them or over have too much empathy. They want you to acknowledge. So some of that is just maybe a tilt of the head, a smile, a virtual hug, a physical hug. Uh, Thank you for sharing that. That's really brave of you. What can I do? How can I help you? Type conversation. Um, it's not often someone's story will actually resonate so deeply inside me that I end up in trauma myself. Um, I can be empathic, empathetic, compassionate without absorbing all of that pain. So I'm not trying to put a barrier up as such, but I think I've got a resilience in there. So I think about that film, the Green Mile, where the big black man Baba, he sucks the pain out of people, and he ends up in trauma himself, and he has to fire those bad things, black things out of his mouth and let it out. So I don't absorb it in that way, but I am able to give compassion, empathy, and really relate to somebody. And yeah, I may shed a tear. I may shed a tear. I may feel for them in that moment, but I don't absorb it in that way.
Well done. What inspires you to become successful in life?
Uh, that's a really good question. I think, yeah. So I'm 59, and I look at the calendar, and I look at my watch, and I look at the date, and I think, okay, 75 at age 75 is kind of like my hope that I could be active, productive, and capable till I'm 75. Anything more than that, I'm a bonus. That's kind of where I'm heading for. So my definition of being successful in life has probably evolved since I was 16, 20, 30, 40, 50 of what I wanted. Yeah, in the early days, it was wanting stuff, property, status, family, big house, cars, uh, big fat bank account. Today, success for me is work-life balance or life-work balance, not working too hard. Um, the fulfillment I get and the joy I get from others appreciating what I give to them through my speaking, my inspiration, spending time with my wife and having that time together, spending time with our children. So success for me means earning sufficient revenue to allow me to live my life with freedom and choice without necessarily overindulging. So yeah, it's a different curve, and to be able to keep going as long as I wish and physically able. So that's what success means to me.
It's a good answer. And I can concur with that too, Joanne, because when I was a younger person, I'm also 59 myself. Success to me meant, a nice house, a nice car. Now, I think the world has changed an awful lot because of the whole area, this kind of the ozone and climate change. Now they're recommending that people should have smaller houses, but better equipped in terms of thermal efficiency and heat efficiency and all this sort of good stuff. So that's what I have as a small house. I'm happy with it. It does for me. But I think also, like yourself, my view of success has changed over the years. And for me, it's about creating a legacy that will go on way beyond my own personal life. That's how I see success. That's how I see success for me in the future is being there to provide a
Yeah.
service for people that they find meaningful. It's not just a case of ticking boxes or crunching numbers to earn a salary at the end of the month. That's all of the past. Thanks be to God. So there you go. Question here for you, Joanne. If you were given the opportunity to make one request that was going to be granted uh, without question, what would that be?
One request to be granted with that question. That's a really good question. I think I think it has to fit into my model of success. I would like to have sufficient of whatever that may be: sufficient money, sufficient health, sufficient love, sufficient friendship, sufficient whatever that may be, in whatever I need at the time, and not want, need, to be able to live my life in happiness with the love of the people around me. I think that would make it happen. And in there is world peace, sufficient world peace for me to enjoy that life, sufficient environmentalism for the planet to be successful. So I think sufficient for what I need to allow me to live my life and enjoy it.